All right, welcome to The Explainer. So let me ask you something. You ever feel like your emotions are just on autopilot? Like bad news comes in and you just have to feel terrible? Well, today we're going to dig into a really powerful idea from something called Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, or REBT. And it basically flips that whole idea on its head. It tells us that you actually have way more control over your emotional destiny than you probably think. So here's what we're getting into. First, we're going to bust a super common myth about where our feelings even come from. Then we'll break down this really simple but kind of brilliant model called the ABCs. After that, we'll look at the two different kinds of beliefs that totally shape our world, see how it all works with a quick story about a guy named George, and then, we'll finish up with a practical tool you can use right away. All right, let's kick things off with something I'm pretty sure we've all been through. Picture this. You're going after something you really want. And, well, it just doesn't pan out. So really think about that for a second. You bomb the interview, you don't get the job. Does that event, the rejection itself, does it make you feel depressed? I mean, it seems like it should, right? It sounds logical.
Yeah, it might feel like it does, but the real answer? It's a hard no. And getting why, that is the absolute key to taking back control. The rejection itself isn't what's making you feel that way. See, the reality is it's not the event. It's the meaning you attach to it. It's your beliefs about what happened that actually create your emotional reaction. I mean, think about it. If 100 people got rejected for that same job, would they all feel the exact same way? No way.
And you know what? This isn't some brand new self-help idea. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was saying this stuff almost 2,000 years ago. So this wisdom has been with us for a long, long time. Our perspective, that's where the real power is.
Okay, so if A, the event, doesn't directly cause C, the feeling, then what's happening in between? What's the missing piece? Well, this is where REBT gives us this really, really useful tool, the ABC model.
It's a really simple chain of events. You have A, the activating event. That gets filtered through B, your beliefs about the event. And that leads to C, the consequences, how you feel and act. See, most of us think A just leads straight to C. We totally skip right over B, which is wild, because B is the one step where we actually have all the power.
So first up, we've got A for activating event. This is just the thing that happens. It's the external trigger, right? It's failing the test, getting turned down for a date, being stuck in a traffic jam. It's whatever thing happens out there in the world that blocks you from getting what you want. And then comes B for beliefs. Now this is the crucial step. This is your inner monologue. It's the story you tell yourself about the event. It's what you decide that failed test or that rejection means. This right here, this is where all your power is. And finally, we have C for consequences. This is how you feel and what you do next. Feeling depressed, getting all anxious, maybe lashing out in anger, or even just deciding you're never going to try that thing again. We always think A causes C, but we're starting to see that B is the real engine driving the whole thing. So if our beliefs at step B are the engine, then we've got to ask ourselves, what kind of fuel are we putting in it? Because it turns out that the type of belief we have is what decides whether our emotional consequences, our C, are healthy or, really unhealthy. So REBT breaks our beliefs down into two main types. On one side, you have rational beliefs, or RBs. Think of these as flexible preferences. They're kind of like warm thoughts, like, I'd really like for this to happen, or, man, I dislike that this happened. They're reasonable, right? But then on the other side, you've got irrational beliefs, or IBs. And these aren't just preferences. Nope, they are rigid, absolute demands. These are hot thoughts, and they're packed with words like must and should not. And telling these two apart, that is literally everything.
So a rational belief, it sounds like this. It's just a preference, right? It's not some law of the universe that you're laying down. And if you hold a belief like this, you might feel some healthy disappointment, maybe some concern, but not, total devastation. It's an emotion you can actually handle and maybe even learn from.
But an irrational belief? Oh, that takes that nice, reasonable preference and cranks it up into a non-negotiable demand. I must have this job. This kind of all or nothing thinking just sets you up for a world of hurt. Because when reality doesn't bend to your must, you don't just feel disappointed. You feel totally crushed because you've made it into this huge catastrophe that says something awful about who you are as a person.
Okay, let's make this even more real. Let's look at how this plays out with an actual example from the REBT case files. This is the story of a guy named George. So, meet George. George's problem, his C, his consequence, was that he felt this overwhelming, intense guilt. And the A, the activating event, it was his own strong sexual desire for a lot of the women he met. He believed this desire was just wrong, and it was absolutely torturing him. Now, what his therapist helped him figure out was that the desire itself, that was basically just a rational belief, a really strong preference. That wasn't the actual problem. The real thing causing all that guilt was a second, irrational belief that he had slopped right on top of it. I must not have such a strong desire. You see? He took a perfectly natural feeling and turned it into this huge moral catastrophe. So by challenging that super rigid must not, George was finally able to accept his own preference without all that judgment. And here's the crazy part. That actually gave him more control over how he acted because he wasn't fighting himself anymore. It freed him from that crippling guilt. He learned how to separate his feelings from his sense of self-worth. Okay, so theory is great, stories are great, but let's make this super practical for you. You can use this exact same logic to start digging into the beliefs that are driving your own difficult emotions. So next time you feel a really strong, tough emotion, like anxiety or depression or anger, hit the pause button. Try to find the two beliefs that are going on, because there's almost always a rational preference in there somewhere. Like, I'd really like to pass this test. But it's usually buried under a huge irrational demand, like I have to pass this test or I'm a total failure. You see the pattern here? The preference leads to manageable feelings, like disappointment. The demand, that leads to unhealthy stuff, like despair or rage. Really, it all boils down to this one simple thing. Your rational beliefs, they're your preferences. They're flexible. But your irrational beliefs, the ones causing all the drama, they're your rigid, unconditional commands. They're those tyrannical musts, shoulds, and oughts that you try to force on yourself and on the world. And this right here, this is the most empowering part of this whole idea. You are the main architect of your own emotional distress. And if you're the one who creates it with your beliefs, well, that means you also have the incredible power to uncreate it. You can change it for the better. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Think about something that's stressing you out right now in your own life. Can you find the rigid must or should that's secretly fueling all that frustration? What's the one must that you're going to challenge today?